All right, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and get started here today. So thank you for joining us. We're going to be on a highly anticipated webinar today, teaching guys how to deploy, sell, basically everything you need to know to really get off running with Microsoft Teams. So before we get started, I just want to make sure, can somebody pop in the chat and just, as always, just message in there as long as you can see my screen and hear me talk. If anybody can just pop in there real quick, that would be appreciated. Cool, awesome. All right, thank you guys. I appreciate it. All right, so again, we're gonna be doing this webinar today for Microsoft Teams. I'm gonna be also joined by one of our engineers here, Isaac, who I'm sure a lot of you have had the privilege to speak with. So we're thanking him for joining us today. All right, so today, the whole agenda of today's webinar, we want to really get into grave detail about what is Microsoft Teams, how does it work with our platform, and how that benefits you. So by definition, Microsoft Teams is a unified communications platform that Microsoft has developed. That it's really, their end goal with it is really to be a fully collaborative experience, including the phone system side of things. So you can do video meetings, file storage and transfers. It integrates with all their apps natively. It is a really nice product. We've been using a lot of here internally, and it is a really nice tool. So where do we come into place, right? So Microsoft Teams Direct Routing is where you guys fit. So Microsoft Teams Direct Routing is the ability to use your own SIP carrier within Microsoft Teams for calling plans. So you guys will be that SIP carrier in this instance. And generally the reason why we haven't, or we believe we haven't seen mass adoption of Teams on the direct routing side is you'd have to purchase an expensive appliance, whether it's like a ribbon appliance or audio codes or whatever it is, and they generally start at $6,000 plus licensing per customer. And you'd have to provide one of those for each of their customers. It's a physical piece of hardware that has to be on site, so it kind of defeats the purpose of a cloud-based solution, right? You're adding extra hardware, so it really didn't make much sense for most end users to go this route with Teams Direct Routing versus just using Microsoft directly. So what we did was we built out basically that same appliance, but a virtual version and a multi-tenanted version in our cloud. So you don't have to supply these appliances for your customers. We built everything out for you. It's already ready to rock and ready to go. And of course, it's in the cloud as well. So the implementation process, Isaac was awesome enough to put together a full article. It's in our knowledge base. We are going to start turning off knowledge base articles for outside view. So all that really means for you guys is you'll just have to create an actual authenticated account if you don't have one today to our Zendesk. And then you can just view these articles. It's just so everybody else who's not a Viirtue client can't see these. But this article that Isaac put together for you guys, it really does navigate step by step all the different information you need, all the prereqs to get it going, all the commands you have to run. Really, the only thing that you really need besides adequate Microsoft experience with their system, which is super simple, which we'll show you a little bit today, is PowerShell. As long as you can execute commands in PowerShell, you should be good to go. We also have discussed doing that as a professional service here at Viirtue for you guys for your accounts, but this doc really does walk you through it step by step. I do think that as long as you have some technical knowledge, you should be able to execute those commands for sure. All right, so one of the other really nice things about the Microsoft Teams tenant that we're going to show you today and that their whole application, Yealink and Polycom also has them on the roadmap, but Yealink has them out already. Yealink has a whole line of phones you can see on their website if you just navigate and you just click on the for Microsoft Teams phones. They have a full line of Teams that were deployed specifically for Microsoft Teams. Super, super easy. It's the Teams interface. It looks identical to the app on your desktop and on your mobile app as well for Teams. And all the end users have to do is log in with their Office 365 credentials. So really, really simple to deploy. You really just have to put the phone on the desk and the end users log themselves in, and it does all the things that they're accustomed to within Teams, whether it's chat, it'll show it on the display, it'll show their calendar, meetings, they can make calls, of course. It really is a nice shared experience across all their devices. And that's where we've traditionally seen these last couple of installs that we've done with some of our partners as like one-off installs. We've seen a lot of success because it is such a nicely integrated platform across all the different devices. All right, so today what we really, really wanted to hit on was the ability for you guys to understand your competition, right? How do you sell it? Where do you guys fit? So understanding your competition, the two biggest players that we've seen in the space today are really Microsoft themselves with what they call Microsoft calling plans, as well as Call Tower. Call Tower has been really the one that we've been seeing in the enterprise space, and that's where they focus. They focus in that enterprise space. They really kind of own it right now, but their pricing is very high, and that's why we see a really tremendous opportunity for you guys, especially in that enterprise space. So we're seeing Call Tower, generally they price their plans around $35 a user, which is almost triple the price of Microsoft directly. And their value add is basically the same as we're trying to teach you guys to do is you're the value add, right? That dedicated onboarding, that dedicated support, you guys setting up that Microsoft solution for them versus them actually going to Microsoft Direct, which I think most of us who have worked with Microsoft in the past really do understand how much of a trouble that is, especially for an enterprise customer. And that's what we've seen. We've had some really big names that you guys definitely know of, household names that we've deployed on this with our solution for some of our partners, and it really does bring a tremendous value add versus whether it's Call Tower or Microsoft directly. And then Microsoft is definitely competitive on price, and we'll get into where you fit in a second. So Microsoft charges, they have two different plans you can purchase per user. They charge $12 a user for domestic only calling plans per user, and an additional $12 a user if you want to add international to that plan as well. And as always, I'm not sure if I mentioned this at the beginning. If you guys do have any questions, please do feel free to pop them into the questions box, and I'll try and address them over at the end. All right, so where do you fit in, right? So we've deployed teams, again, for a couple different companies. What you're really going to want to key on and hit on is uptime and white glove implementation and support. Those are your tremendous value that you're going to offer versus Microsoft, versus Call Tower, versus all the other ones. The uptime side, we haven't really seen a problem with Microsoft as far as uptime. Generally, it's okay. I have seen a couple instances where Microsoft had an outage, and that's a big issue because Microsoft has an issue. That customer might not get support from Microsoft for 2 or 3 days. So obviously somebody cannot, especially an enterprise organization, cannot depend on going a few days without even an update if they're not able to use their phones. And then of course your value add with Microsoft is just that white glove, dedicated support, dedicated onboarding for that customer. Call Tower, we've seen a lot of outages with them, so that's a good value prop you can hit on is the uptime. As you guys know, our uptime is tremendous, so just another added key value prop for you guys. Right, so the recommended pricing that we came up that we really like to see you guys hitting on here is the $12 a user for domestic calling plans. Obviously, you can a la carte international, or you can charge them a flat rate, whatever you guys prefer. I would kind of just do it the same as you're doing with your existing customer base today. It just keeps it the same price as Microsoft with you as the added value. So we've just generally seen pricing it this way. You don't lose. I mean, if you're going to be the same price as a competitor and offer a better service, you really shouldn't be losing any business. And then just what does it cost you? Just a brief breakdown so you understand. It's going to cost you $12.95 per session. So per set, and that's per month. So per session means how many active simultaneous calls you have on our Teams SVC. That's basically how it works to charge us, plus DIDs and origination termination. So think of it like a SIP trunk with just a little added cost of that session per session. And then again, just DIDs and usage. So the way we kind of calculated it out is from the usage we've seen, and it is a few thousand users we already have deployed on our Microsoft Teams instance. We've calculated about a 10-to-1 ratio for active calls per physical users. So if you use that ratio, you just figured that that's going to be the average moving forward. On average, your seats are really only going to cost you $1.29 plus the usage. So this should be a tremendously high margin product for you guys. I mean, you should be seeing 70, 80 points at least off of this product for sure. All right, and then how do you guys deploy it? So in addition to that article, which we'll go over again today, you're going to submit a ticket to us requesting us to Teams enable your SIP trunk. So you'll build a SIP trunk as you normally would, and then you'll have us Teams enable that trunk. We just have to do a few things and connect that trunk on the back end to our virtual environment. Our help desk team will actually return you a templated comment that will just have 5 brief questions that should be easy for you to answer. Things like how many sessions are going to be on that so we can license it properly, what domain is that SIP trunk for, things of that nature. Once we enable that SIP trunk, you're going to pair the customer Teams tenant with our platform by following that article. They showed you a brief snippet. Again, Isaac was awesome enough to, and he's going to take over here in a couple minutes and show you it kind of in action, but to put together that article for you, it really does walk you step by step. And again, our team will be there for you as a professional service. If you guys do feel uncomfortable running PowerShell commands, we can always offer to do that as well. And then you'll just proceed as normal, right? So you'll submit your LMP info, provision it as a normal account, do your normal onboarding process with that customer. And then on install day, all you got to do is put the phones on their desk, right? Nothing to provision because they log into the phones themselves. And that's really it. It's really simple deployment we've generally seen. Right. And then a couple things to keep in mind, just some stuff we've uncovered for the installs that we've helped some of our partners too. Teams is definitely a brand new product, so it does have its little nuances, its little things. As it gets more mature, we definitely think it's going to get better. We've already seen it come a long way in the past year that we've been really testing it out. It doesn't have the same amount of features as our traditional UCaaS platform, so that's something that you'll definitely notice, and that's something where you'll still likely see users adopt our traditional platform, especially in the small business space. Where we've seen a really good fit for Microsoft Teams is especially with larger organizations where their end users are just making and receiving calls, they're transferring calls, doing conference calls, maybe some basic auto attendance. For them, it's a great solution. If you do have a client that needs like the automation that our call queuing brings, or call center, or any of those other cool features, then generally our traditional UCaaS platform is going to be a better fit for them. But you'll understand it. But again, I would say it's basically like a very basic VoIP system is the best way to put it. One bug that we also did uncover, there is currently a bug with Yealink phones that stops that comfort ringback on some calls, and it is being actively worked by us in Yealink, and we do expect to have a resolution to that pretty soon. But it is just something that we ran into that we definitely want to make sure that you guys are aware about before we deploy, and we'll definitely post to that KB article once that issue is resolved. And then we also see the product just where it fits, right? We see it as a tremendous fit for larger enterprises, 50 plus users. It's usually a no-brainer. Again, just to hit on those call control features, it's got basic call queues, auto attendance transfers, conference calling, and obviously it's chat and some other things that Isaac's going to show you here in just a moment. But if it needs that, it's usually a great fit. What we've always seen really in our industry is that trends that start in the enterprise space follow a couple of years later to the SMB space. So right now, I would definitely focus on enterprise, focus on those medium businesses, and I definitely think you'll see as the years progress and as Teams becomes more mature, it's going to be more and more adopted in our industry. So just definitely something awesome you guys will be able to get into market with really quickly. Call Tower is the only other major player in this game besides us and you guys, right? So we think we really do have a key piece of this market that we can feed off of. So before I hand over to Isaac to show his screen, I did have a couple questions here. SIP and so Charlie, I see your question there. Can customers run SIP and Teams? Can you elaborate? Do you mean like SIP as in like our traditional hosted platform, or do you mean SIP as in like the SIP trunking, the direct routing, which we're talking about today? So if you want to pop that in, I see a few more, but we'll try and get those at the end, so I can let Isaac have control here. So Isaac, you can hear me, right? Let's do this.
I can, yeah.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to make Isaac the presenter real briefly. All right, Isaac, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. Is that showing? You guys see that?
Yep, we can see it. You're all good, Beth.
Okay. So this is the Teams Admin Center. From here, you have a number of different options. You can manage your specific teams, your groups here, which you will need to have groups or distribution lists when it comes to having call queues, which we can get into that in a little bit as well. From there, you've got devices. When you have those Yealinks or Polycoms, things like that, they actually do show up in here, and you should see this one here. It's currently offline. But they're managed. It shows you who it's located or who it's registered to. If there's an update for the firmware and for the Teams application as well, it shows you that information here. You can see that it's queuing for the Yealink firmware for those phones. There is a little more information in here about the phone itself. From there, you've got locations, you've got users. You'll see all of these users here, and there's only one with a phone number assigned. That's me. And with that, what you'll notice when you're looking at the Teams app here is if there isn't a phone number assigned there, they're not going to get this dial pad interface here. We'll get to that again in a moment. The other things that you would want to look for really in the admin portal, if you needed to diagnose a call issue, you would click on the user and you come in here to say call history, and then you can look through here and get information on the calls themselves and dig in a little further. Also, things you want to look at is this direct routing. This will show you the connection to the SBC and if it's up and if it's working. You'll see here, this is the one that's connected to. We've had 2 calls, 100%. This inactive here and SIP options, these can be ignored. I've worked with Microsoft on both of them, and they say that they're essentially false negatives. And then this will go down as well. So say 0 if you don't have calls coming in, and it's just because it goes below the 80% ratio that they're looking for. So it doesn't always mean that there is an issue. It's just a warning. To set up call queues and auto attendance, the big thing that you need to know is that you have to have a resource account assigned to it, and then some licensing assigned to that resource account. The licensing that you need is free. It's like a cloud phone licensing that you can pick up from the admin center, and it should automatically assign the call queue and the auto attendance those necessary licenses. But if they don't, you can simply add them. Same thing with auto attendance. It's all added in here. You get a ton of different options. If you don't have any resource accounts, this is where you go through and you add them. You can add them here, or you can add them directly in the resource account location. Discard that. It's got call parks, your call policies, things like that. And then you have some analytics reports. The admin dashboard you probably won't use a whole lot of, mainly just for your call queues, your auto attendance, and then checking out user information and potentially the phone devices. The application itself, the Teams application, you have your feed here. You have chat. You see Dan and I have had a little conversation here about the weather, and you can chat anybody else that's in your location. If you had groups or teams, you would be able to join, talk with them, do all that information here. Syncs your calendars. You've got your calls, contacts, call history. And then as I mentioned before, if you have a number assigned to your account and your account is set up to work with the direct routing, you will get this dial pad here. And what you do, you just simply give a call. This is going to call our main number here.
Viirtue.
And that's it. And pretty much you can transfer, hold, do all of that stuff here. I'm just going to hang up there so we don't sit in the queue. And then you've got your file sharing. For the app itself, it's pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy to go through. Not a whole lot to it. As far as the calling goes, this is your main thing you're looking for. If this is ever not showing, then you're going to have a bit of an issue, and you need to have them check this out. The other thing I'll say about getting this all set up and going is that it will take time. It will absolutely take 24 to 48 hours at the minimum before everything is up and going. And that is just the way Microsoft works. When you run some of these commands to assign the number to the user and get it all paired, Microsoft has a sync time, and it happens once every 24 hours. So any changes you make, they're not going to apply or show within that 24-hour window. They don't tell you when it happens. It just says essentially it happens once every 24 hours. So if it is at midnight and you put your changes in at 11:50, then you've only got to wait 10 minutes. However, if you put them in during the day, you've got to wait until their sync cycle happens again, and then your changes actually go through. So you'll see a couple of times in here I mentioned to just wait. You just have to wait. Once you get certain things going, after waiting, you should be able to do this. And unfortunately, that's just the way it works with Microsoft in this regard anyway.
For sure. And Isaac, are you done showing this article? I'm gonna just take back control real quick.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And unless there's something in there you think that I missed, or if anybody has questions, I could try and answer them. If not, then yeah, you can take it back over.
For sure, yeah. And everybody, Charlie, I answered your follow-up question there right in the chat. So basically, Charlie's question was, can customers run traditional UCaaS, right, our traditional hosted VoIP platform, and Teams together? And the short answer is yes. You can always create just that SIP trunk within that customer account. The one caveat to it, I could kind of see run into it. I'm sure it would get confusing, right? Running two different PBX tenants. We actually had one of our deployments where they kind of were running both in tandem with each other. The only issue is you have to deploy a DID per user in Teams for it to work properly. So if that user has the same DID in Teams and within the UCaaS platform, I could see conflicts running into that situation there and some other things. But for the most part, you should be able to definitely deploy it. Also, the one thing I wanted to show you, and let me just pull back control of this, is the mobile app as well. So that's why I have it here. So as you can see, just they're really nice piece to teams, and I do like the app a lot. It's just that full connected app. You get chat, the ability to make calls, everything Isaac just showed you on the actual Teams application that runs on desktop. You can do it similar on mobile and on the Yealink Teams phones as well, and soon to be Polycom as well. It is a really nice experience for the end users. Again, we're just seeing the enterprise space is just really eating this up. So definitely position yourselves in there. You're in a really nice time. We kind of see this as like being into the cloud VoIP industry in like 2009, right? Like get in there early. Ton of market share available for it. We really do see this as being a nice little wave of voice over IP. So definitely get yourselves involved. And if there, does anybody else have any other questions? I see some basic things that I answered privately, but if anybody has any other questions, do feel free to pop them in the chat. If not, I'm going to throw this webinar up. You'll notice again as we progress, we're starting to close articles. We're eventually going to close our entire knowledge base. That doesn't mean you can't access any of that information. All that means is that basically you'll just have to log in to get it. And then one more thing I just wanted to let you guys know about today. We also have, so we're going to be doing a webinar, I believe it's October 24th. We're booked. You'll see that email invite go out shortly. Not only is it going to be, we're going to have Compliance Solutions Inc. doing a tax compliance webinar, which is really, really important for your guys' business. So definitely stay tuned to that. But we're also going to be joined by Poly, and they're going to be showing off all their new equipment. I think they're even going to be raffling off some gear, some new headsets and things like that. They were actually backed right up to us at the Channel Partner Show in DC, and they did have some really cool stuff. They had a really awesome new video conferencing solution that's really inexpensive. Their new headsets we were really liking a lot, and they have a new wireless deck phone that actually works versus the old one. So I'm definitely excited for that webinar. Please join us for that. And today, we're very happy for you guys to join us. And again, looking forward to joining you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everyone.